Welcome to the shop. Today we got something a little bit different for you. This is a sponsored video. ArcCaptain sent me in this machine. It's a MiG 200 and I'm gonna dig into it, see what it can do, maybe try and hook up a spool gun, and yeah, let's get started. The MiG 200 machine is set up for welding steel out of the box. It comes with stick welder capabilities and MIG welding capabilities for steel, and has a cool plug that allows you to go from 120 to 220 voltage, or 240 if you have that available. I have 220 in this garage, but I could travel with it and plug it into a 120 socket if I'm on the road. And it's an upgradable welder. Right now, it doesn't have a spool gun, but you could hook up a spool gun to it, and that would greatly increase its versatility as an aluminum welder. You can change out the liner in these with a Teflon liner, but in my experience it isn't the best, and I have another video about modifying a machine to have a spool gun welder on it. The machine comes with some spare tips here, and if you're just starting out, I'd recommend getting a few more of those copper ones, just because you will muck them up if you're learning. And it also comes with a few different profiles and sizes of these rollers, and these are what's going to push your wire through to the end of your whip. It has a knurled V-groove and U-groove in a few different sizes, and those will go in this part of the welder here and here, and it will push the wire all the way to the end of your whip. I got my spool loaded up here. It just fits on with this thumb screw, and you can use flux core, but if you have a tank and a regulator, this machine does come with a hose to hook up to that, and so I'm going to be using that and using the shielding gas. And you're going to want to make sure that the wire comes off the bottom of the spool and you feed it into this hole, and then it's going to come out this roller, and you want it to get into that other silver bit there. So it's fed nicely, and it's going to come all the way through, and I can take this wheel and push it down and fold this lever up, and that squeezes these wheels on the wire so that when the motor spins this wheel, it pushes the wire out to the end of your whip. And if it's slipping or sliding, you can adjust the tension here more or less, and you can also change out these grooves depending on what material you're welding with. To continue getting the wire through to the end of our whip, we're going to feed it through this large brass bit here and get the other pins to connect. Sometimes you need to wiggle it and then twist this tight, and that's all you need to do to get your MIG whip set up. To finish getting the filler wire to the end of the whip, I use this red button here, and that red button activates the motor inside this drive mechanism and pulls the cable out. There's this cable in the front of the machine which can be in multiple positions. Right now it's in the flux core side, and it can also be used for spot welding, or you can put it over onto the other side and use it for spool gun welding and MIG gas welding, or you can remove it entirely and have it free floating and then use it for stick and TIG. So it's important to get the positioning of this right and your ground clamps when welding. I'm getting set up to do some test welds here with the new machine, and if we look at the display, I'll show you how I got it set up. I'm in synergic mode, which is probably the best feature of this machine. It'll automatically adjust the voltage depending on how many amps you have, and gives you the best results in a variety of welding scenarios. But if you want a little more control, you can click this and go to manual mode, where you can adjust the wire feed speed and the voltage automatically. And then I'm set up to weld iron. That's what the FE stands for, ferrous, with mixed gas. If I press this, I can change my filler rod material to flux, stainless, aluminum, or iron with pure CO2, or the mix. And then this button here will allow you to go from 2T to 4T to spot weld. 2T is what I normally use, 4T is for very long runs, and spot weld is for quick spots. I have 0.9 millimeter filler wire here, and you can adjust that by pressing this button, cycling through the options. I'm set up for MIG. You can swap between that and stick, TIG, and the spool feed, spool gun MIG. This round thing is a weld nut, and I'm going to test out the spot welding feature of this machine on it. I'm going to try and tack both sides of this, and then I'm going to switch over from spot mode to 2T mode and try and run a bead along the whole thing. I MIG welded some scraps from the bin together to make this MIG gun holder. This bolt here is going to act as the clamp to hold it onto the welding bench. I got the holder clamped onto the table, and now I can just put my MIG whip in there and I won't have it fall on the floor anymore. And I can also pop my TIG torch in there just as easily. I don't stick weld very often, but since the machine came with an electrode holder, I figured I'd give it a go. Here's what I was able to pull off with the stick welder side. I was using some pretty old 6013 and I'm pretty out of practice, so I'm pleased with how this turned out. It's not the best weld, but you know, I think that's more on me than the machine. The machine seems plenty capable. I got my spool gun hooked up to the ArcCaptain MiG 200. The connections on my spool gun and the machine don't match, but I was able to run jumper cables just to test. The bottom pin out of 4 here is going to be your negative, and the pin to the left is going to be your positive. And so I hooked up those, and all those are doing is powering this motor that pushes the filler rod forward. The actual current and gas is coming through this big main wire here. While I did manage to get some good welds in with this test setup, I recommend you do a more permanent install. ArcCaptain has a how-to video on their YouTube channel and a post on their website, and overall it's a pretty easy install. If you're looking at this and you can weld, thinking about welding, I'm sure you could hook this up. I got the aluminum spool gun dialed in pretty alright. It's making some good welds. This machine is doing great, and it wasn't too much of a hassle to hook it up. So if you want to do a little bit of work, you can upgrade your machine and make it into a pretty capable spool gun welder and tackle aluminum. It's important to note though that you will need an argon tank to do this. Earlier I was using a mixed gas tank called C25, but this was welded with pure argon. Overall, the ArcCaptain MiG 200 is a pretty decent little machine. It's kind of on the budget price tier, but it's full of features. There's definitely nicer welders out there, but those are going to cost a lot more, and you get a decent value for your money here. It's inverter based and has that nice digital readout with lots of adjustability. It handled the steel work I did just fine, and it was really easy to hook the aluminum spool gun up to it, and it did a great job welding the aluminum. So if you're just getting started, you could start with the steel and then eventually upgrade the welder, which is a nice feature. And yeah, I'm just going to know this machine, but it seems pretty solid. I got some fun projects planned for it, and if you learned something, please like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.